I am a successful 32-year-old plumber who took over my father's business years ago. My family and I were always close, especially my younger sister Amanda. I worked hard to support her through law school, proud to help her achieve her dreams while I built our family business. But everything changed when she excluded me from Christmas because my blue-collar job embarrassed her. Let me know where you are watching from and hit that like and subscribe button to find out how I cut off her law school money and why I am better off without her now. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Ohio, I never imagined I would take over my dad's plumbing business. I had plans to study business management at the local state university, but life had other plans for me. When I was 19, just a few months before starting college, my father suffered a severe heart attack that left him unable to continue working. As the oldest child and only son, I faced a difficult choice: go to college as planned or step up to save the family business. With bills piling up and my sister Amanda still in high school, I chose to put my education on hold. I learned the plumbing trade through intensive on-the-job training with my dad supervising from home during his recovery. Those first years were tough. I worked 16-hour days, learning everything from basic pipe repairs to complex commercial systems. My hands were perpetually rough, my fingernails never completely clean despite scrubbing them raw every night. But I found satisfaction in solving problems and helping people. There is something deeply rewarding about fixing a burst pipe that is flooding someone's home or restoring hot water to a family with small children in the dead of winter. By the time I turned 25, I had not only stabilized the business but expanded it. Chip's Professional Plumbing now employed 6 full-time plumbers and 2 office staff. We had contracts with 3 local construction companies and a solid reputation throughout the county. Dad recovered enough to work part-time in the office handling the books while I managed the field operations. Our parents had always been supportive of both Amanda and me. They never played favorites, giving us equal attention and encouragement in our different pursuits. Dad took pride in teaching me the trade, while Mom attended every academic competition and school event for Amanda, who was a straight-A student with dreams of becoming a lawyer. Amanda was 4 years younger than me, and had always been the brilliant one in the family. While I struggled with subjects like English and history, preferring to work with my hands, Amanda devoured books and excelled in debate club. I admired her intelligence and determination, and she seemed to respect my work ethic and practical skills. We had different strengths, but shared a close bond growing up. When Amanda got accepted to Northwestern University for her undergraduate degree, I felt incredibly proud. By that time, the plumbing business was doing well enough that I could help with her tuition. Our parents contributed what they could, but with Dad's medical bills and reduced income, I stepped up to cover the gap. Amanda hugged me tightly when I presented her with a check for her first semester. "I will pay you back someday, Chip." "I promise," she said with tears in her eyes. "Just make us proud," I replied. "That is payment enough." For the first 2 years of her undergraduate program, Amanda would call weekly to share stories about her classes and professors. She would ask about the business and laugh at my tales of plumbing disasters and eccentric customers. During breaks, she would come home and we would stay up late talking about our futures. I shared my plans to expand the business into neighboring counties while she talked about her dream of becoming a civil rights attorney. The first signs of trouble appeared during her junior year. Amanda came home for spring break with new designer clothes and a different way of speaking. She used academic jargon I did not understand and seemed less interested in hearing about the business. When I arrived at home straight from a job still wearing my work clothes, she wrinkled her nose. "Could you not change before dinner? You smell like sewage," she said, though I had been fixing a drinking water line, not a sewage system. "Sorry, had an emergency call right before coming over," I explained, feeling slightly embarrassed. I noticed she moved her designer handbag further away from where I stood. A few months later, Amanda brought home her new boyfriend Jackson for the 4th of July weekend. Jackson was also pre-law, came from a wealthy Connecticut family, and made no effort to hide his disdain for our modest home and lifestyle. During dinner, the conversation turned to career choices. "I believe the greatest impact on society comes from those who work with their minds rather than their hands," Jackson said, glancing pointedly at my calloused fingers. "No offense, but intellectual pursuits simply create more value than manual labor." I expected Amanda to defend me, or at least acknowledge the value of my work. Instead, she laughed and added, "That is why I am so grateful for the opportunity to study law. Not everyone gets to use their intellectual potential." Mom looked uncomfortable, and Dad frowned, but neither said anything. I felt a knot form in my stomach as I realized Amanda might be ashamed of what I did for a living, the very work that was helping pay for her education. That night, I overheard Amanda and Jackson talking on the porch. Jackson asked, "Does your brother really think being a plumber is a career? Surely he has ambitions beyond unclogging toilets." I waited for Amanda to defend me, to tell him about how I had saved the family business, how I employed 8 people, or how I had won a small business excellence award from the Chamber of Commerce. Instead, I heard her sigh. "It is just temporary. He planned to go to college before Dad got sick. Maybe someday he will go back to school and do something better." I stood frozen in the hallway, a cold realization washing over me. My sister, whom I loved and supported, saw my profession as something to be ashamed of, something temporary to be improved upon. I went to bed that night questioning for the first time whether supporting her education was the right choice. The tension between Amanda and me continued to grow over the next year. When she graduated with honors from Northwestern, our entire family attended the ceremony. I closed the business for 2 days, rescheduling dozens of appointments, and drove 6 hours to be there. I brought her a graduation gift, a gold bracelet that cost nearly $2,000, along with a check to help her get settled before law school started. At the celebration dinner afterward, Amanda thanked our parents profusely for their support. She mentioned her professors, her roommates, and even her academic advisor. But my contribution, which by that point totaled over $30,000, received only a passing acknowledgement. "And thanks to everyone else who helped along the way," she said, not even making eye contact with me. I tried to brush it off, telling myself she was just overwhelmed by the occasion. But the pattern continued as Amanda prepared for law school at Georgetown. I increased my financial support since law school tuition was substantially higher than undergraduate costs. I was now sending her $3,000 monthly for tuition, rent, and living expenses, a significant portion of my income despite the business doing well. The first time I visited her new apartment in Washington, D.C., I parked my work truck, which had the CHIPS Professional Plumbing logo on the side, in the visitor lot. Amanda called me before I even reached her door. "Could you park that somewhere else, maybe a few blocks away?" she asked, her voice tense. "Why, I am in a visitor spot," I replied, confused. "Some of my classmates live in this building. I do not want them to see. Just please move it." I moved the truck, telling myself it was her apartment and her right to ask, but the knot in my stomach tightened. Later that evening, 2 of her law school friends stopped by unexpectedly. Amanda introduced me simply as my brother Chip, with no mention of what I did for a living. When one friend asked directly, she quickly changed the subject before I could answer. That Thanksgiving, I flew to Washington since I had too much work to drive. Amanda picked me up at the airport and immediately launched into stories about her professors and the fascinating cases she was studying. Throughout the weekend, whenever I tried to share news about the business, like landing our first government contract or the new specialized equipment I had invested in, she would interrupt with another law school anecdote or take a call from a classmate. At dinner with some of her friends, she monopolized the conversation with legal jargon and inside jokes from her classes. When one friend politely asked me about my work, Amanda answered for me. "Oh, Chip works in construction back in Ohio," she said vaguely. I started to correct her, to explain that I owned a plumbing business with multiple employees and commercial contracts, but she quickly redirected the conversation to a moot court competition she had recently won. As Christmas approached, I looked forward to having Amanda home for a couple of weeks. Our parents decided to come stay with me since my house was larger, and I had spent the previous month getting a guest room ready for Amanda, buying new bedding, and even placing a small desk by the window where she could study if needed. Then came the text message that changed everything. "Change of plans for Christmas," Amanda wrote. "I am hosting dinner at my apartment for some professors and friends from school. Really important for networking. We'll come visit after New Year's instead." I was disappointed but understood the importance of professional connections. "No problem." "Do you need any extra money for hosting?" I replied. 3 days later, I was on a service call when my phone buzzed with a group text from Mom. She was coordinating travel arrangements to Washington for Christmas, discussing flight options with Dad, and what gifts to bring for Amanda's professors. I stared at my phone in confusion. They were going to Amanda's for Christmas. I called Mom immediately. "What is this about you and Dad going to D.C. for Christmas?" I thought. Amanda canceled. There was a long pause. "Oh, Chip, we thought you knew. Amanda is just hosting a small professional gathering. Family is still welcome, but she thought you might be uncomfortable around all her law school colleagues." "Why would I be uncomfortable?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Another pause. "Well, you know how these academic types can be. Very status conscious. Amanda is trying to make important connections for her future. She just thinks it might be awkward to explain. Your situation." "My situation." My voice had grown cold. "Your profession, dear. You know how people can be judgmental about blue-collar work. She is not ashamed of you, she just does not want to answer uncomfortable questions. You understand, right? It is important for her career." I hung up without answering. That evening, I received a text directly from Amanda. Mom said she talked to you about Christmas. "Hope you are not upset. These connections are really important, and Professor Winters brings his wife, who is a hiring partner at a top firm. It would just be easier without having to explain why my brother is a plumber while everyone else comes from legal and academic backgrounds. I will make it up to you next year." That text was like a physical blow. I sat in my kitchen reading and rereading it, trying to process that my sister was explicitly excluding me from a family Christmas because of my profession. The same profession that was financing her law school education and networking dinners. What hurt even more was that our parents had sided with her. They saw nothing wrong with excluding their son from Christmas because his blue-collar job might make their daughter uncomfortable in front of her important connections. 24 hours ago, I had been looking forward to hosting my family for the holidays. Now I faced spending Christmas alone while they all pretended I did not exist. I spent the week before Christmas in a fog of disbelief and hurt. Every morning I would wake up thinking it was just a bad dream, only to check my phone and see the group texts between Amanda and our parents discussing their Washington visit. They made no effort to include me in any conversations, as if accepting my exclusion as perfectly reasonable. I threw myself into work scheduling extra jobs to keep busy and to avoid thinking about being alone during the holidays. On Christmas Eve, I finished my last emergency call around 8:30 p.m., fixing a water heater for a family with 3 small children. The mother had tears of gratitude in her eyes when hot water started flowing again. "You saved our Christmas," she said, pressing cookies into my hands as I left. That small moment of appreciation felt more genuine than anything I had experienced from my family recently. Christmas morning arrived with a cold, empty silence in my house. The tree I had put up weeks ago stood in the corner, presents for my family still wrapped underneath. I made coffee and sat on my couch, scrolling mindlessly through my phone to distract myself from the loneliness. Then the social media updates began. Amanda posted photos of our parents arriving at her apartment, champagne glasses raised in a toast. There were pictures of her elegant table setting the expensive wine she had purchased with the money I sent, and the small group of well-dressed professors and their spouses gathered in her living room. Jackson was there too now, apparently her serious boyfriend. He posted a photo of the group with the caption, "Perfect Christmas with the intellectual elite. Some gatherings are better kept exclusive." Amanda liked the post and commented, "Quality over quantity always." Then came the comment that broke me. Someone I did not recognize wrote under Jackson's post, "No blue-collar relatives to embarrass you this year." And Jackson replied, "We keep the working class separate from the thinking class where they belong." Amanda did not defend me. Instead, she added lol to Jackson's comment. I threw my phone across the room and finally broke down. For years, I had sacrificed to support Amanda's dreams, working 60-hour weeks, pouring thousands of dollars into her education, putting my own plans for expansion on hold. And this was how she saw me, how she spoke about me to others. Not as a brother who loved her enough to support her dreams, but as an embarrassment to be hidden away. In that moment of clarity, sitting alone on Christmas morning with my family laughing at me hundreds of miles away, I realized several truths at once. My work was valuable. I helped people every day, solved real problems, built something real with my hands and my mind. I employed people, provided for their families. There was dignity in what I did, whether Amanda and her elitist friends recognized it or not. I also realized I had been financing my own exclusion and disrespect. Every check I wrote for Amanda's tuition was another step toward her seeing herself as too good for me and our working-class background. I was paying for her to become someone who despised people like me. That realization led to my decision. I called my bank and canceled the automatic transfer scheduled for January 1st that would pay Amanda's next semester tuition. Then I blocked Amanda Jackson and even my parents on my phone. I needed space to think to decide what kind of relationship, if any, I wanted with people who could so easily discard me. 3 weeks later, Amanda called from an unknown number, her voice frantic. There must be some mistake with the tuition payment. The university is threatening to drop me from classes if it is not paid by Friday. There is no mistake, I said calmly. I am no longer paying your tuition. What, you cannot do that? I have no way to pay it myself, and loans this late in the semester are impossible. Perhaps you should ask your intellectual elite friends or your thinking class boyfriend for help, I replied, the hurt evident in my voice. After all, a mere plumber like me probably cannot afford it anyway. There was a long silence. You saw the social media posts. It was not a question. Yes. And the texts. And had the conversation with Mom. I know exactly what you think of me and my work. I did not mean it like that, she started, but I cut her off. You meant exactly that. You excluded me from Christmas with our family because you were embarrassed by my profession. The same profession that paid for your apartment, your tuition, your networking dinners, and probably the clothes you were wearing in those photos. Amanda's tone changed from panic to anger. You cannot punish me like this. This is my future we are talking about. I have worked so hard to get here. You are being selfish. Selfish, I almost laughed. I have given you over $60,000 while you mocked me behind my back. That ends now. You want to pretend you do not have a plumber for a brother. Fine. But you do not get to take my plumber money anymore. I hung up and blocked the new number. Within hours, both my parents were calling and texting from different numbers. I finally agreed to meet them at a restaurant near my house the following weekend. It was time for a family meeting. That meeting was as painful as Christmas had been. My parents begged me to reconsider, arguing that Amanda's future was at stake. They minimized her actions, calling them youthful mistakes and social pressure. When I remained firm, they turned to attacks, calling me jealous of Amanda's success and opportunities. She is going to be a lawyer, Chip. A professional with a real career, Dad said. The man who had once taught me to take pride in our trade. Do you want to ruin that because of some hurt feelings? His words confirmed what I already knew, that they too saw my work as lesser, as something to move beyond. I stood up from the table, a strange calm replacing the hurt that had consumed me for weeks. I am a professional with a real career, I said quietly. I run a successful business that helps people every day. I employ 8 people who can support their families because of the opportunities I provide. I have never been ashamed of what I do, and I will not support anyone who is ashamed of me because of it. I walked out of that restaurant with my head held high, choosing self-respect over toxic family dynamics. It was the hardest and best decision I ever made. The aftermath of cutting off Amanda's tuition was immediate and intense. My phone exploded with messages, first angry and accusatory, then pleading and desperate as the reality of her situation sank in. She tried every emotional tactic to manipulate me into changing my mind. She reminded me of childhood promises to always take care of each other. She claimed she would be forced to drop out just 1 year before finishing her degree. She even threatened to tell family friends that I had abandoned her out of jealousy. When emotional manipulation failed, she sent Jackson to reason with me man to man. He showed up at my office unannounced, wearing an expensive suit that looked out of place among the pipes and tools. You need to understand the bigger picture here, he said condescendingly. Amanda is going to be connected to powerful people. That could benefit you too someday. I laughed in his face. I do not need connections to succeed. I built this business with my hands and my brain. Now please leave before I have you escorted out. Instead of dwelling on the family drama, I channeled my energy into expanding the business. I signed 2 major commercial contracts. I had been hesitating on, hired 2 more plumbers, and invested in specialized equipment for industrial work. Without Amanda's tuition payments draining my resources, I could finally pursue growth opportunities I had been putting off. I also began building new relationships with people who respected me and my profession. I joined a business owners association and connected with other skilled trade entrepreneurs. We understood each other's challenges and victories in a way my family never had. For the first time in years, I felt seen and valued for exactly who I was. Through the association, I met Mike, an attorney specializing in construction litigation. Unlike Jackson and Amanda's law school crowd, Mike viewed skilled tradespeople as essential experts. He often hired me as a consultant on cases involving plumbing and construction defects. "I could not do my job without specialists like you," he told me after we won our first case together. "Your practical knowledge is worth more than 10 lawyers who have never held a wrench." 6 months after cutting Amanda off financially, I heard through a family friend that she had indeed dropped out of law school. Apparently, she had tried to secure loans, but her credit was not strong enough without a cosigner, and neither our parents nor Jackson were willing or able to take on the debt. She moved back to Ohio and took a paralegal position at a small firm, a far cry from the prestigious career she had envisioned. I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only sadness for what our relationship had become. I had never wanted to hurt her, only to stand up for my own dignity. Still, I maintained my distance, focusing on building my life without the constant drain of toxic family dynamics. Almost a year after the Christmas exclusion, Amanda appeared at my office. She looked different, less polished, more like the sister I remembered from before law school. She asked if we could talk, and against my better judgment, I agreed to coffee after work. "I messed up," she said, staring into her cup. "I got caught up in an environment that values the wrong things. I was trying so hard to fit in that I betrayed the person who supported me most." I nodded but said nothing, waiting to see if this was another manipulation or something more genuine. "I miss you," she continued, "and I miss who I was before I started caring more about appearances than relationships." "What exactly do you want, Amanda?" I finally asked. "Because if this is another attempt to get tuition money, the answer is still no." Her face flushed. "I was hoping we could start rebuilding our relationship. Maybe you could help me go back to finish my last year of law school eventually." And there it was. Not a true reconciliation, but another angle to get what she wanted. I stood up, leaving money on the table for our coffee. "When you are ready to value me for who I am, not what I can give you, we can talk again. Good luck, Amanda." Walking away that second time was easier than the first. I recognized that while people can change, real change requires genuine remorse and a desire to make amends, not just a new strategy to get what they want. As months turned into years, I continued to flourish both personally and professionally. Chip's professional plumbing expanded into 3 neighboring counties. I bought a small commercial building and opened a training center where I taught plumbing skills to at-risk youth and career changers. Giving others the opportunity to learn a valuable trade became my passion project, a way to show that working with your hands can be both profitable and fulfilling. My parents eventually reached out, their tone more respectful after seeing my business success highlighted in a regional business magazine. We established a cautious relationship, limited but cordial. They never apologized for Christmas or their dismissive attitude toward my career, but they stopped making negative comments about it. It was a small victory, but one I accepted. Amanda and I remained estranged. I heard she eventually married Jackson, though not before signing a prenuptial agreement his family insisted upon. Occasionally I saw Facebook updates through mutual friends showing a life that looked perfect on the surface, but made me wonder if she ever found genuine happiness, or if she was still chasing approval from people who would never truly accept her. As for me, I found peace in knowing I had stood up for my self-worth. I surrounded myself with people who valued authenticity over appearances, substance over status. I built a successful business based on honest work and genuine service. And most importantly, I learned that sometimes losing toxic relationships, even family ones, can be the first step toward finding your true path. Would I reconcile with Amanda if she genuinely changed? Maybe. Family bonds run deep, and forgiveness is always possible. But it would have to be on terms of mutual respect, with no room for shame or pretense. Until then, I remain better off, without the weight of trying to earn approval from someone incapable of giving it. Have you ever had to cut off a family member who did not respect you or your work? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences about setting boundaries and choosing self-respect. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, the true measure of success is not in status or titles, but in living authentically and treating others with dignity.